All right, everybody, welcome to Cyberbulls. We have 4 big, giant topics that we're going to talk about today. All of them are pretty tectonic. They're important for Tesla. You know, what is the right business model that FSD should be sold or licensed to automakers? Did Elon make a mistake with the compact car? And Giga India is coming out. We'll also do a preview of Q1 earnings. And there's a few things, a few nuggets here you're going to hear that we haven't heard before. So welcome to the Bulls here. Welcome, Alexandra, Jeff, and Xander. Let's start with you, Alexandra. It's been shows you've missed. Tell me how you're doing and what's up.
I am doing fine, Herbert. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I think I should explain that a little bit. So when I last was here, it was in the middle of Judge McCormick, Delaware case and all that. And, you know, I tried to play an important role there. So I was sort of a bit tired. That coincided by pure coincidence with my weight loss journey. You know, I've started GLP-1 medication, and so I've lost the last 2 months 26 pounds, which is great, and I'm feeling great, but I have to say it is tiring. Obviously, it was something. So I sort of had my burnout moment, and I felt it was a good thing to, you know, just retract a little bit. People had seen me enough, and I needed to, you know, take some care of myself, give myself a little bit of grace and kindness. So did that, loved it, very happy to be back. Love my little cheeks. They're getting slimmer. I'm so proud of it. And very happy to be back. And, you know, the good thing actually is it gave me time to think about Tesla, because, you know, that's what I do when I can't sleep or when I don't have anything else to do. And it gave me sort of a setback, not a setback, but a reset of my conviction of Tesla. Not that I was ever, you know, not convinced. I'm still an all-in investor. I have a tiny little thing in a satellite company, but that is it. 98% of my money is in Tesla, and I've added some more recently. But I actually, just at that beginning of that moment, I thought about investing into these GLP pharmaceuticals. And in the end decided that no, nothing's better than Tesla. So I put everything back into Tesla. Not back, but new fresh cash into Tesla rather than diversifying. And it gave me this moment of also thinking about FSD, because obviously 12.1 was then rolling out. Now we're at 12.3. I actually got 12.3 last night on our Model 3. I haven't driven it yet, but I'm going to drive that now. And it gave me this, you know, this conviction that I didn't have anymore in January. I recall myself saying, oh my God, I don't think we'll get to robotaxis. I don't think this, I don't think that. And today you should hear me 3 months later. I'm more convinced than ever. And I know we're going to talk about it later, but you know, sometimes it's just good just pulling back a little bit of social media, pulling back a little bit of these, you know, videos and these discussions, and just finding your soul again. And thank you for allowing me to do that, Herbert. You're just the best, because when I said I need a break, you said you just take as much time as you need, and I appreciate it.
I didn't say that. I said, please come back. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, thank you so much. It's good to have you back, as everybody was missing you. So, you know, we'll talk about that, your conviction, and FSD being a big one of them. So the topics we'll talk about today, as I mentioned, is the FSD business model, and then we'll talk about the others as well. So let me set that up, right? Omar sent this out 3 days ago. He said, in the future, every car will be self-driving and electric. Every car Tesla makes is self-driving electric, right? So Elon has talked about this, that you can't just make a profitable electric vehicle. You need to be thinking about self-driving. And so many car companies can't even get an electric vehicle profitable. And yet many of them are not even able to consider how they're going to add self-driving. As robot cars eat the auto market, Tesla's going to be the overwhelming benefactor. Well, Elon replied saying, yeah, this should be obvious, Then he quickly replied again, and he said, we will license the tech to other car companies. Now, he said that many times before, but it's interesting. He called it the tech, number one. Then yesterday, Omar said this, FSD Licensing, his proposal for how you should partner with OEMs. He said, allow the OEMs to integrate it into any car for free or at cost. Don't charge the partners. Car owner pays for the FSD license. Now, the safety and the basics, obviously that should come free, but car owners should pay for the FSD. Now, he said something like leverage the supercharger deals, right? So if an OEM partners with Tesla, then their customers get to use supercharger at the same price as Tesla car owners get it because they've integrated. Here's the shocker. Elon said, you know, Tesla would be happy to do such deals. Now, this has caused a little bit of a discussion and a controversy. And I wouldn't say controversy, but a debate amongst us investors. Some of us think that this was the right thing to do. I just had a show with Larry Goldberg. He's all on board with this. But I know that Alexander and Jeff, you guys initially said this doesn't make sense. Why don't we start with you, Jeff? What's your thinking about what you saw here?
Yeah, no, I first off, this is exciting. I've been talking about FSD licensing for almost a year, I think. And I think it's imminent. I think it's coming. There's an integration timeline that it takes to get this tech into a vehicle. You can't raise your hand today as a Tesla OEM, another OEM, and say, I want this and think you're shipping it this year. It's going to take you a couple of years to integrate. And you got to think about this logically. If Tesla goes live with something pretty substantial within a year, I mean, you're going to be a couple of years out from Tesla. So all this makes sense. So I've done a lot of deals in my past, well, in current life actually, and I think this requires a lot of studying in terms of like what's the right thing to do. Omar's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to drive adoption. So when you provide a lot of freebies up front in a deal, you're trying to drive the adoption rate up. And my only contention here is like, let's see how good the product is. It looks like it's going to be not only something very good, but something very scalable and something that others can't get unless they come to Tesla to get. And there's other examples of this in the industry. So all I would implore upon people is to kind of look at some of these other examples and maybe, pressure test a couple of ideas back and forth. So there's risk, and again, we're not going to like study every line item and obsess about it, but the free, if they don't integrate FSD in the right way and you've given away the technology for free, of course you could pull a license or whatever, it's fine, but you have risk. You've put your labor, you put your engineering resources out, you put your time out, and you have a time expectancy on money and return from this investment of doing the licensing deal. And if they don't integrate it right, they don't really, they lose the sales on their end, but you lose, potentially a lot more of like picking the wrong partners at the right time. So I like it when partners have skin in the game very early. And I also like to figure out like how to drive a win-win. So in these situations, you have to look at the entire margin picture. And the hardware, I agree, it looks like it's going to be like mice nuts in the whole deal. Don't obsess about it. But I would say, to me, there needs to be a little bit of a ticket to ride. Like if you're an OEM partner to Tesla, there's a check written of like, look, you're going to get access to this premier, engineering team that's going to be set up, I think, to work with partners. They're not going to have as many of the core engineers on it, I would think. And there needs to be a ticket to ride. There needs to be a full licensing deal. I think there's 3 or 4 components where there could be money and transactions going back and forth. You don't have to overcomplicate it, but you have to make sure, I think, that Tesla has the engine flowing and has the ability to take upfront cash and invest to make their network better, to make their network broader, because they're going to be moving on to the next thing. And so I think that you just got to step back and not kind of, like rush through these deals. But I think the exciting thing is we're talking about this happening. And I'd have to believe that a lot of the competitive vehicles that, Tesla OEM competitors have that are Teslas, I'm sure they're getting this 12.3 download. They're driving it and they're in this decision framework probably right now. What are we building? What does Tesla have? What's the rate of improvement we think Tesla's going to have with their solution? What's the rate of improvement we think we're going to have with our solution? The thing that people don't talk about is the cost structure and the economic model of these solutions. There's nobody even close to what Tesla is doing from a scalability perspective. So I think we take a little bit of time. I think Tesla's in the driver's seat. They have a very special product. They don't need to rush and give it away, in my opinion, but they do need a strategy to drive like significant adoption, because that's where the money is going to be, is in the adoption curve.
Yeah, but Søren Basher did a complete business model analysis of Robotaxi, and the economics for Robotaxi, even for the FSD uptake, once this is feature complete and really incredibly good, it's just incredible. It's just too much that it's maybe it's peanuts to try to ask the OEMs to have to pay something. There's so much money to be made.
That's a good point.
It's okay to do that. But let's go ahead and have you, Alexandra. You had a different opinion.
I did, but that's actually a very good point, Herbert. I think, and the last couple of weeks of being, thinking about it really gave me reassurance about it, that Robotaxi is going to be even bigger than anybody imagines now. And Robotaxi is going to be an only Tesla business. They may not operate everything themselves. We'll see how that goes, but it's going to be Tesla's having this Robotaxi technology and being, driverless. And you're right. The licensing to other cars may in the end just be the cash from the users rather than any other income. I just feel, and I expressed that yesterday very clearly, I'm sort of a bit at the end of the road with my freebies of Tesla story, right? It's all good to save humanity. That's why we needed Christian. But the point really is that, we put those patents out, we doing battery day, we're doing AI day, and then it gets copied. People, what they can copy. Will they be able to copy the neural net and end to end what we're having? No, they won't. So that is the strategic goat that Tesla has. But my feeling is just, giving it away for free to save whatever, even probably the OEMs, seems like, overly generous. It may speed up things. Jeff is completely right on that. It may also just get them into the boat because there's so much hostility with so many of these players. But I'm not sure it has to be for free. Now, would I be completely upset if it is for free? Of course not. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And if it brings full self-driving to the masses, well, be it. But at the same time, don't forget that currently the evolution of EVs, be it Ford, but even GM and obviously many others, is rather going slower to the profit of hybrids because, they see a short-term sugar high, being able to sell hybrids and continuing on their traditional business models. So I'm just not so sure so many are going to jump on it, even if it is free. And sometimes the fact that you have to pay for it makes it actually more attractive than if you get it for free. The other point that Jeff made is really good. And we heard, I think it was Pete Bannon who explained that when they launched the Cybertruck and talked about, there was this one video where Pete was there with a couple of Drew and Lars and a couple of other of the executives, explaining that if that would happen, Tesla has to bring teams to the OEMs. They will work there, set it all up with them and all that. So there is an effort on Tesla's side. It's not just come here and sign a contract with us. There's really some teaching and know-how transmission and all that. So if that happens, there has to be some compensation. Constantly doing things for free, I know it comes in the end, and license partners will pay for it in the end. But it's I just feel enough of the freebies.
Okay. And then how about you, Xander?
I mean, I had a whole bunch of hopefully good points, and then Jeff said mice nuts. Jeff, can you explain?
Yeah, that's the minority part of a contract. So the shit you don't worry about.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Font size 8.
Yeah. We can probably Google it if you need to, Xander, and bring it up on the screen.
I'm trying to stay here. You don't have mice.
Move on.
I think that Elon is open to negotiations, and there's definitely to save humanity. So I don't think it's quite necessary to throw out the baby with the bathwater, ignore the ideas or the proposals. So I think that's the ultimate point. Is it sounds like they are willing to acquire users, even if it's for free, and then do the recurring revenue of FSD.
Okay. Well, okay. So I think it's, we're having fun a little bit, of course, when you say save humanity, but actually saving humanity is very, very profitable, guys. Very profitable. So if you are able to come out and offer a full self-driving yourself, and then it's going to head to Robotaxi for Tesla, and then you have a partner, maybe you have a big partner, it's game over. It's like supercharger, right? You become the standard, and then everybody will fall. More people will get access to it. It is the way that's going to save humanity because more people will get it. But again, as I kept mentioning, this will change the business model of an automaker. It's not just a one-time 17% auto gross margin, so 17 grand or whatever, how much money they make per sale of a car, right? This is going to be $100,000 per year per car in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And then you want as many cars out there as possible.
Yeah. And I want to add one thing is by maybe giving it for free, again, you do understand how it breaks my heart. You actually may pull the tooth of that argument that Tesla is constructing a monopoly.
Right.
So I think that one is coming because you just know how much administration hates Tesla. And if you can sort of forego that one by saying, oh, look, we've given it to Ford, we're giving it to GM, we're giving it to Daimler or whoever, Volkswagen, whatever, Toyota, I think that would break away we're imposing it for money, right? If you're giving it for free, well, you can't be accused of, for free, at cost. Don't give it for free, at cost. You can't be accused of building a monopoly there.
Okay.
If you go back to the browser debates and the preloads and, Microsoft, preloaded, all of their suite for quote unquote free, or it's preloaded. So, it's debatable, but I do agree with your point. I think it's a factor, Alexandra. I keep going back to where are they at from a competitive perspective, and what have they built and what have they invested? This is the same thing that drug makers go through in terms of like, what's the R&D effort involved, and and how quickly it's recouped. But I agree, the Uber goal is, how do you drive mass adoption and you drive an acceleration of revenue? I don't care where you spread it, but you should have some amount of risk sharing between the partners. And this all comes down in the contract and the language, but there should be some amount of risk sharing. So if they pull out, you're not getting screwed, or if they implement, your thing in an incorrect way or use it in an incorrect manner, that they take the liability. So maybe I'm just getting too far or thinking too much into the contract. In general, the focus should be how do you accelerate revenue, and how do you both upfront and lifetime, and how do you get, the most amount of revenue? But I think we're talking about two different things too. FSD licensing to OEMs. I don't think all these cars are just turning into robotaxis. I think a robotaxi fleet is a different thing, and it's a different set of software. But I understand where you're coming from too, Herbert. But I think, so this is coming down to, what are consumers willing to pay for this? And then how does the OEM in the loop between Tesla and the consumer also make money? Because I think they are going to make money. And like, how does everybody make money in this? And then in the end, is there a consumer that's highly satisfied? So I think there's multiple ways to skin this, I guess.
For sure. Okay, so big topic. Like you said, we're glad we're talking about it. It's feeling like it's more real than it's ever been. Very likely that we're going to hear. I asked the question in X post, what's the likelihood that there could be a partner announcement this year? Some people said 0%. 0% is going to happen this year. No, like what? What do you guys think?
I'm 100%.
Yeah.
Whoa. Jeff, Mr.
And you remember I had one in January where I said it will be in the first half. Remember that one? And I still consider that's possible. The thing is, if you are now an OEM, and I'm talking more about the Germans than the Americans, but if you're now a German OEM and you've tried Mobileye and you understand that this whole LiDAR compute is just bringing you non-sufficient data, and you're actually where Tesla was 5 years ago, and the progress you will have to make is a completely different one, while Tesla is running away with it, because you will see we're getting now monthly iterations that are going to be just so much better. So what do you do? They have less of the political issues that American OEMs have. So I still think it could be a German OEM calling first. It obviously has to be one that has quite some EVs, because I don't think Tesla will ever accept to install FSD on anything else than battery electric vehicles. And I've brought forward my concerns about FSD running in China or Chinese FSD running somewhere else than in China. So I don't think it's going to be the Chinese, but it could very well be one of the European OEMs. And I mean, Ford. I know Ford announced Thursday morning that they're not going to do EVs for a couple of years, but they have set up in California all this center of research for EVs. So I think while they will not publicly push EVs, they could still very well be one of the first partners just for that project that then will miraculously see the day in 3-4 years. I mean, never forget, OEMs need 3 to 4 years for a new car. It's not like Tesla. I know people complain that Tesla doesn't bring quickly enough new models out, but OEMs is they're revolutionizing cup holder sizes. That's what they usually do. So for them, this is a real big thing.
Okay, so you say German auto. I'm gonna say a smaller OEM, like a Nissan, like a Mazda, like that. Jeff, you're saying Ford, right?
No, I'm just saying it's this year. I don't know who.
You're not gonna guess. We're playing a game. Come on, just.
Oh. I would probably go with. Maybe Ford, maybe Rivian, one of the two.
Okay.
I tell you, a Rivian with FSD becomes a lot more attractive vehicle than.
Agreed.
They'll
without.
get investors. Yeah. You're just okay.
Good.
Xander,
I'm pretty good at these guessy games, by the way.
You are really good at lots of games.
Where did that come from? Have you won something before? I don't remember. Like you're winning.
I think somebody asked me to guess who the next Twitter CEO was, and I guessed that one.
You did.
That's true.
I think there was a couple other ones too, but who knows? I could be wrong.
Who's keeping track?
Okay, Xander, just fill it out. What's your guess?
I mean, I like Ford because they've been working together, but and then the whole 0% or 100%. I mean, whoa, talk about putting your neck on the line. Like you don't know. I think there's a lot of ego involved with these manufacturers, so it's hard to say when they get it. But the product is so good. I think there's a lot to like the stock performance now. It doesn't make sense. So I'm trying to figure out what do we attribute it to, and FSD seems to be the
look. This is going to turn into very soon. How do I not look like a complete dipshit leadership team and miss out on it's going to turn into that very soon. And like what then? Because you don't want the boards. Well, what did you have? What was this product? Show me the independent analysis of the progress of your system. Did you evaluate Tesla's system? Where was it at? And this is going to turn into how do I think the first people in are actually going to get the best deal. And I think they're going to get the right amount of focus and attention, and they'll be first to market besides Tesla. But, I do understand there's risk involved in any of these things. And I don't think there's any absolutes, but I think it's imminent.
So this is, okay, you go back to Elon's comment that it's very obvious that the future is going to be an electric vehicle that is also full self-driving, that's got self-driving. And this is an existential risk. So yes, they have ego, brand, but this is an existential risk. And so I think there's going to be decisions made. And that's why I think it's the smaller guys who's going to just jump first before the big boys.
And remember, you're right. Yeah. Remember, we had this analysis with Nissan. Remember that, yes. Herbert, when there was the Japanese car show, they said we soon have and they never published anything, but they were very close to doing something on full self-driving. You're right.
Okay. So
hold on, Herbert. One more thing. I think that it's important, to look at the counter argument, not the bullish one. And there's many will say, no, and there's people like driving or whatever. But as we saw with the charging standard, it just takes one. And as soon as that one jumps in, then everyone else has to play along. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. And something that, Jeff, you said earlier, you said Uber goal. And I think that's a Freudian slip.
I think they're going to be, I think they may be one of the first partners too. In this, because it changes the business model. It changes the business model of how long drivers can be in vehicles. It changes a number of different things. So I think there's a commercial there's a consumer and a commercial aspect to this work, and I think it spans a lot broader than even I can even think of, or all of us even at times. I want to just one other just really important thing. We have gone from doing this work on CPUs and having people type in and punch code in and fix and squash bugs, and then having these new edge cases pop up and it just being this loop. And we went from that to this end-to-end AI model. And if you've noticed, the releases are coming out faster, they're more stable, and there's a lot of things that are being fixed. I just recorded a drive. I'll post a clip of a wrong turn that the vehicle always used to make on FSD, and these things are just getting fixed a lot more quickly. And I don't think people could. We're going to be on a different pace of improvement, and I think the first step is they have to get the feature complete. And I think we're just going to be on a vastly different pace of improvement. I think people have been accustomed for the last 2 or 3 years of what they see throughout the year, and I think it's just going to be completely different. So I actually think the speed in these decisions and other OEMs will also have to coincide, because they're going to have an understanding of, like, Tesla's on a different time frame and timetable now.
All right, so we were going to talk about Elon's mistake. I'm going to bring that up to the next topic. There's a lot of people, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, I don't know. There's two sides to the story. Some people are now saying that Elon made a drastic mistake for delaying the build of the compact car, because they point to Walter Isaacson's biography in that chapter that he said that he was negotiating. The purpose, he said, I'm not going to make the compact car anymore. I wanted to focus on the Robotaxi. The executives apparently convinced them otherwise, but that he delayed it, and they should have built it in 2020 instead of waiting until next year to build it. And that's why the stock is low, because we're all now in this, in between two growth waves. There's a lot of people that they think that they were smarter than Elon, that Elon made a dramatic mistake. What's your opinion on this? Who wants to start this off?
I can go. I mean, I'll go for. I just feel like I just spoke, but here's the thing. If they launched this vehicle in 2020, 2021, it would have been a disaster for a number of reasons. One, the input prices on commodities were skyrocketing, going through. Look at the cost of copper, look at the cost of aluminum, look at the cost of any of the bare metals, look at freight, look at logistics. They would have had to make trade-offs in the core proposition, right, Herbert, and that whole product management model of, like, what's the consumer willing to pay for? They would have, that value per dollar trade-off, they would have had to make a bunch of compromise decisions of what this vehicle is. They had not developed the unbox model, which is honestly going to, that version of the factory is going to be as much a part of the bill of material to getting this thing to $17,000 or $18,000 cost target as the decisions they make in terms of what's physically in the car. So you were at it. There was no denying, like, if they made that decision, if all things were considered equal and there was no COVID, it's something you could argue. But I actually think if you look at the technology that's going to go in this vehicle, it is 48 volt. If they go steer by wire, some of these technologies wouldn't have existed at the time. And if you tried to roll it out in a car that you're going to try to run at 3 or 4 million units a year or more, you could have a real catastrophe trying to roll out brand new tech in a vehicle of that size. So I think bringing that technology into the Cybertruck and scaling that at a more confined control velocity in the Cybertruck is actually the right move. But there's a bunch of other reasons. There wasn't sufficient battery supply at the time. There wasn't an LFP North America. There isn't still an LFP North America supply chain yet. Tesla's got to develop that partnership and bring that technology here and get it, so they can build product for this region. They have to do that for every region. So there's a lot of technology that needs to be localized. And you can say, "Oh, it's fine, Jeff. Why couldn't they? If they did it earlier, we may have it now." And part of that may be true. But here's the bottom line. Here's to me the kicker in the whole thing. If they did this work during COVID, And with the input prices going through the roof, like I said, they would have made the wrong decisions on the product. You would have basically had a highly compromised Model 3 or Model Y rolling out versus what we're going to get in 2025 and 2026, which is going to be the best of everything. And we're going to be in a position where they can fully utilize that. Let's say this thing is going to run at 4 million units a year. Imagine if this was in 2021 and you had all the supply chain inbound issues, you had all the outbound freight issues, you would have totally underutilized that capacity. It would have been a disaster from a utilization perspective, and especially with the input prices, being where they were. So there was a number of reasons, both sequentially in terms of what they needed to develop when they developed it, what was going on from a macro economy perspective during that time, what was the availability of supply of these key commodities and these key assemblies, like, for example, localized battery supply chains and sufficient supply. There were a number of reasons why a product at that run rate could not have run at that time. But I think what is arguable is, like, can they pull this in? Can they do this a little bit faster? I think those are more constructive questions than should they have done this 3 years ago or not. I think it would have been a disaster.
This is James Capp. This is what he says. So we should invite another space and let's have a debate on this. You got James Capp, you've got Gary Black, very strongly believing that Elon made a strategic mistake. And he says, for those people who say Elon didn't deprioritize the affordable mass market car, it was COVID, inflation, the plague, dinosaurs. Reality is in the biography. Thank goodness for the Tesla executives that were able to talk sense into him. But yeah, this is why the car is coming in 2026, not 2024, when it was needed to sustain growth. So he brings up the biography, and he highlighted Musk himself had teased the possibility in 2020, but then he put a hold on those plans. And over the next 2 years, he repeatedly vetoed the idea, saying that the Robotaxi would make the other car unnecessary. So their points is that the reason why Elon made this decision was because he really wanted the Robotaxi, not because of COVID and supply chain. Anybody here?
Yeah.
Alexandra?
I want to take this up, and I'm a little bit fed up with this Wall Street whisperers, win number counters, and self-declared analysts. I'm sorry, I really am, because it just on and on and on. Monday morning quarterbacking, knowing everything better, never ran a car company, never did anything in AI, but they know it all, right? Let's just do it. Now, let me get to the point of why the Cybertruck was so important. First of all, it validated technologies, and Jeff pointed this out in a very, very good way. The 48-volt architecture is a key piece to the unboxed production model that will enable the 25,000 car. When did we get the 48-volt architecture? Now with the Cybertruck, not before. The stainless steel exoskeleton, that, in my view, is going to be the key component to building the Robotaxis, because they will run 1+ million miles, so that they require little maintenance. Was there any stainless steel car before? No, there wasn't. I mean, there was before, but I mean, not in Tesla's line and not in the last 20 years. And then obviously, and Jeff pointed this out already, optimizing the 4680 batteries and the whole battery management system, that again is the key to scaling up production for both the Robotaxi and lowering the cost for the $25,000 car. So there was just no way this would have been the same car then than it's going to be now. So, I mean, could it have been different? Of course it could have been different, but it wasn't different. There's no point. And I just feel these people are busy from morning to evening knowing things better. Well, if you know things better, set up a car company, do it, instead of sitting there at Twitter, hammering on your keyboard and pretending you know it all and just, not being constructive in any way. Rather think about what we now have on hand to build this Robotaxi and to build this car. And I'm going to throw this in here. I'm actually thinking that the Robotaxi and the $25,000 car are going to appear more or less at the same time. And that this is going to be something that they're currently building, and that will be the $25,000 car is obviously going to be a full self-driving car by the time it comes out, but the Robotaxi will be the associated business model that will be there simultaneously. It's not something that is years and years off. And when that happens, all your wet dreams of 25,000 car in 2022, they were just what they were.
You were worried that I said mice nuts earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There we go. But I think these words you all understood, Xander. Was there any word you need any explanation about? I'm most happy to give you.
I was literally saying what she said, like literally the first 2 points. CT was announced first, the tech developed for it. Everything after will be 48 volt architecture. You just literally nailed exactly my thought process, but there's a couple of other things. So
Okay, go ahead.
I think that they need factories that need to be able to run at scale. The entire master plan is to go down market, and how are you skipping the Cybertruck, which is like Alexandra so eloquently put, and we didn't pregame this. We're both aligned in our thinking that you have to be able to satisfy the demand. I waited for like a year and change with my wife for a Model X. We hated it. It was not a fun process, and then there's people that really need a car. So then what are they going to do? Take something else. So before you can go to this ability, yes, when Tesla says that they have justifications for why they're making the choices that they're making, like, why do you think you know better than the founder of the company and his lieutenants? Like, I just don't understand. So I'm completely aligned with Alexandra on that point, and I'll leave it at that.
All right,
And the other thing, if you let me just add one thing, at the same time, the car prices came down. So if these people, if our, wonderful crew of analysts and VIN number counters knew it all, at that moment, a Model 3 was 45,000. Now it's in the low 30s. A Model Y was in the high 50s. Now it's in the higher 30s. So the cars have come down in price, which bring them closer to this goal of 25,000. So, and they're screaming about that, by the way, right? They're all not happy that prices are coming down. So what you want? You want a cheaper car, but you want the other cars to be more expensive? What you want? Straighten out your thoughts, bring it clearly there. If you know better, set up a car company, and if not, stop hammering on the keyboard.
And what Jeff said, by the way, I thought,
and we didn't even talk about the. Yeah, sorry, Xander, please.
No, I was just going to say I didn't include you in the what he said. I only said what she said. So I thought your points were.
It's a better joke.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say there's other little small detail of the phases of all these global factories that need to be built and available for unbox. Like these things were going to happen overnight in 2020, 2021. I mean, there's just so many examples. The tech, the capacity, the input cost, the cost per kilowatt hours of batteries at that point in time. You would have had a completely different, compromised product. So again, I think the challenge now should be is, can it be pulled in? Like, are there things that can be done to pull it in? I think that would be a better debate than like go read the book and see what Elon said 3 or 4 years ago. Because you can go into any company, by the way, Apple, any company, and you can look at decisions that executives made at various points in time, but you really have to look at everything in totality to understand it. And to nitpick it, I don't think it's super helpful. You can debate things. I think it's great to debate things, but then have all the associated facts with it, like the battery supply chain, like input, like have everything with it. It wasn't just going to appear because Elon says, I'm prioritizing this now.
Yeah, I don't think that they have the visibility to all the variables that the executives have. So how can you, armchair quarterback?
Okay, well, I think it's a big enough topic that we should probably held another a space or show.
Yeah, debate's great.
Debating it. Yeah, we should debate it. Debate's great, but it's also not great. I mean, so you want to point out that Elon made a mistake, that's why we're in trouble now. What's the point? Yeah, Elon can make mistakes, absolutely. But is this one of them that really damaged the company? Then they should have done this, ought to have done this, ought to have done that. So I'm not sure what the point is of this debate, but it's a fun one.
How is the company damaged? Like, what, like, can you sharpen that statement?
I mean, I'm just repeating what I hear Gary Black and James Catt are saying, right? We would not have been in between two growth curves. You can already see the Model 3, Model Y was going to be hitting its kind of maximum. And then you should have planned ahead. Instead of the Cybertruck, you could have launched the compact car.
Okay.
And that would have been, we wouldn't be in a place where we are today, right? Low margins, low volume, declining demand.
Yeah, I disagree with that. That damages the company. I think it might make it the stock damaged. We could say that, but I think there's a whole lot of variables and the optics around the name has to completely change. The company is getting no credit for being or almost no credit for being an AI company. So when that changes, if we're going to start not only looking at the delivery and production numbers, but start announcing how many users there are in FSD and energy and all of these other components that make up that Tesla ETF. I think that once you start seeing that, then we could say that the company's damaged. But I don't see how the short-term stock price movements matter in the solving of autonomy. That's going to change the way that we do things, how we get around. Like that, it's so much bigger than just what's in front of your face.
Yeah. I think one other important thing is it's gonna, when they launch the 25K vehicle, it's gonna take them probably a year to get to their COGS target. And that first year, that first quarter, they're going to be printing a loss. So you almost actually need that SaaS business to ramp up and really to kind of get your gross margins and your operating margins at a place. I'm not saying they perfectly plan it this way, but I think it'd be kind of dangerous to put a product at this level of scale, which is going to be pretty scant on gross margins in the first couple of quarters. But then, if you have the SaaS businesses kind of pinning it up a bit, I think that's going to help. So people need to have a reminder of, like, when this thing launches, it's not going to be making $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 per vehicle day one. It's going to take some time to get to it.
And it's not only going to be the SaaS business, it's also going to be energy, and it's also going to be the bots. And that will actually carry the margins during that ramp period. So I mean, again, would have been, could have been, whatever, maybe. But what the point? Look forward. Look at what's happening now. I don't get these guys. I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. So Q1 earnings, we're expecting that to happen in April 23rd, which is a Tuesday. We had the P&D results. Shockingly, the stocks was weird. Where am I here? Am I looking at the Tesla stock here for the year to date? Of course, it's fallen significantly. It's one of the worst performing S&P 500s. Then when you look at the worst, and once you look at the past 5 days, you can see it's not terrible. Obviously, there was a major drop in anticipation, and then it popped yesterday, and then even today went up. Why and how come this happened, Xander? This is just, I guess, opposite of what everybody thought, because it was a major shock to everybody that the deliveries was much lower than expected. You would have expected to be hit more. What happened, Xander?
Yeah, I think we got a glimpse of the sentiment and the psychology behind some of the people who are more short-term minded, but also that are managing money and are looking to go long. That on our cyberbulls space, I believe it was last Tuesday. So they, not this past one, but the one before it. So that gentleman stated that they're looking for the print, and then they will somebody's unmuted. They'll close out their put positions, and they will go the other way. So the way that the stock reacted with an immediate drop, I was positioned for it and had sold calls and bought puts for insurance, just in case we did have that down. And I cashed it all out. I didn't wait because I was worried about this. And you have this flatness, and now why are we seeing up 4% or 4.5%, whatever it was, the high of the day was like 177. If you're concerned about earnings. Where is this buying pressure coming from? So, I was like, is this some kind of short squeeze? But if the short interest isn't that high, is like, what is the explanation for it? And now you have, some people are saying that like the technicals, maybe we go to 200 before. I don't quite see that. I obviously the announcement, and we talked about this on our last show or on last cyberbulls. We can always like pick out a factoid of what's happening in the Tesla world and say like, oh, it's the India, right-hand drive vehicles being manufactured in, I believe it was Germany, and so that must be it. But then I see like a counterpoint that it's something like 8,000 cars are the only ones that are going to get 15%, but I don't even know if that's true. That was just, I wasn't on X today. I was assembling a cabinet for the wifey, but I just think that this is weird. The ultimate point is this is weird. Everyone sees it's weird. Immediately on Tuesday, I was listening to the short-term options people, and they were saying, "Oh, we're going to short the, out of every single rip that happens in Tesla." But if they did, they got their booties handed to them because the stock is performed. So I don't know if it's like maybe just a gamma squeeze in the options market. Again, I haven't paid too much attention, but I'd love the audience to help guide some of this thinking. I think it's an important one. We might be at a major sentiment shift where FSD is so good that even the haters, there's too many believers now that the haters can't keep pushing it down.
Mm-hmm. Anybody is FSD, is that created a floor? Is it some other thing?
No,
what do you guys?
No, I mean, I don't think suddenly anybody at Wall Street understood it, or maybe I didn't listen to the Wall Street whisperer who finally may have seen the light, but I don't think so. No, I think what happened is ARK buying. ARK bought in big quantities, and they may not like her. They may not like her stance on Tesla. They ridicule Cathie Wood regularly. But when she buys for 40 million, those are net purchases. This is not day trading. This is not somebody in and out and whatever. This is somebody really purchasing it for their portfolio. And she's done now. She's done it on April the 2nd, around 166. And I think that built the floor. And then she went on CNBC and gave to Andrew quite a long interview where she explained their stance on Tesla. And they're going to publish soon their new price target, but I do believe it's still around $2,000. So in 2027. So her conviction clearly was out there, and I think people don't want to bet against that. I actually had a short discussion with Brad München on X, who said he's currently not short the stock. And I do believe, short sellers, we've discussed short sellers a couple of times, Herbert, and we're going to discuss it again in a couple of weeks because by mid-April, we'll have the new list of who is still short of Tesla. But there are only very few left, right? So I'm not saying about day traders who may short the stock, of course, but people that have a long-term or at least medium-term short position, they're not that many anymore, and they fear the upside much more than we fear the downside, and that's what happens when you find a floor to a stock.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I agree with both. I think the trading pattern is weird, and I also think that there's a bit of a sentiment shift because it's sold off for 30% year to date, as Herbert showed. So it's interesting to hear the commentary like the day of like maybe it's already priced in. I mean that could be that could be part of it too. I think there's going to be some volatility. The market in general has not been overly volatile. I think the last day or two, there may have been a little bit of jumping, but Tesla did okay. But I would, expect to see some volatility. We're in this period between the deliveries announcement and earnings. A lot of the Wall Street analysts look at the delivery announcements, they redo their earnings estimates, and they're probably going to bring them down, obviously. And you'll see those get published. But they've been they got hit with a pretty big barrage, in March of downgrades, and the stock eventually kind of stabilized itself. at a particular point. So it's really hard to predict. It's hard to say. But I think if you look back at the quarter, I think there was a combination of supply issues. There may have been some demand softness, and there may have been some execution issues on the side of Tesla. I find it interesting, all the figures on X that want to just like to have one word answers of it's demand and just shut up and don't talk about it. And like, I don't understand what that is. I think if the onus is on Tesla to come on the earnings call and say, look, here's what, happened in our quarter. It's a wider miss than, others have, or even maybe we expected. But here's the path for Tesla going forward. Here's how we see the rest of the year. And here's kind of our, maybe a little bit more granularity about how they convert themselves from a unit volume based company to a software as a services company. I think that would be helpful. But and I talked about, Herbert, we had a show early this week about what supply disruptions due to the quarter. There's just a lot of people on X that just don't understand. They look at like, oh my God, shipments or builds were higher than shipments. They have inventory. That means nobody wants the product. They just I do walk through these things in detail. I'm not going to repeat it here, but there were definitely supply issues that added to this. The Model 3 refresh, I mean, that could arguably be 30 or 40,000 of the unit miss in the quarter. And then you've got Cybertruck. So you have to ask yourselves, does Tesla have a demand issue? There could have been softness in regions. There could have been softness by product. That could have happened. There's no question about it. But not many companies have a product like the Cybertruck who they need to get the scale. Literally, if Tesla put 30,000 Cybertrucks out of the factory, they would have all been bought in the first quarter, and we wouldn't have been talking about a miss. If they would have put out 50 or 60,000 Model 3s, they would have been bought. We wouldn't have been talking about a miss. And there's data on it. Every prior quarter, the Model 3 ran at that rate. We wouldn't have been talking about a miss. So I think it's really important to frame these topics and have an honest debate. But I do think there's a combination of issues. It's not a sexy answer. It's not a one-word answer. But I think people need to do some introspection, look at the data, and decide what they do, with their investments going forward on their own.
Love you guys. This is good info. Go ahead, Xander.
Yeah, we had I think Adam Jonas dropped to like 310. So like that wave of downgrades post P&D numbers, we're going to go into earnings. So there's still a lot of volatility that can occur between the earnings call. So I just like personally. I'm not so in fear of the stock price running away from me that I am comfortable selling covered calls. Now, not financial advice. We might be at that sentiment shift, but I have strategies in place. I think that looking at the forward PE of the company, it's important to do that. It's like Webull shows 58.72 on the forward PE, but what was it at 177? I didn't track it, but we can do the math. Like you start going up in the share price, and those numbers start changing. And is that too high for what Tesla is? Well, is the market going to give them credit for being more than just a car company? But
Xander, really quick, that forward PE is based off of 58. That would be based off of like $3 in earnings,
right?
And there's Adam Jonas was like it could be just over $1. So I mean, it's interesting. Like he stuck to 310, and he also put earnings out in $1. So he's kind of at a 300.
Is that what he said?
Multiple. So yeah.
Wow, I didn't catch that.
Anyway, sorry.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, and just on your point, unless Herbert, did you want to say something regarding this topic? Okay, you mentioned the Cybertruck and the Model 2 and all of this. I think really people need to understand that 48 volt architecture unlocks the next phase of what a Tesla looks like. And like my son called it, he said it's a sports car in the shape of a truck. My neighbor said, my truck can't do that. I talked to a 25-year-old cop yesterday, and he just does super straight face, doesn't want to believe it. And then I'm telling him all of these things, 48-volt, rear wheel steering, and it's 0 to 60, all of the stuff that it can do and all of the things that come with it. And it's going to be butts in seats and people experiencing the stuff to where like that demand lever or the demand concern, it'll go away. Right now, we're in a very tough climate for the automotive industry. I mean, Jeff has talked about this last year. He was explaining how during high interest rate environments, what it does historically. So this isn't like some sort of surprise. And I think that being so short-term focused on, like catching the lowest part of the share price, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time. I think when go experience FSD, go ask any FSD driver. If you're a skeptic, just put your tushy in one and then go experience it and make your own decisions. I'm not trying to sell anyone on it. I'm just experiencing it and 12.3.3 and the Cybertruck, and it's genuinely mind blowing. I know I bought it, so then I must be in love with it. It's a given. Go experience it for yourself, and then let's talk.
How did
You're an
Xander? Yeah, how did Xander get a Cybertruck before you, Jeff? How did that even happen? I don't remember.
I'm nothing special. And then
Three?
Tesla, yeah.
Three versus two, tri-motor versus dual motor. And I'm in Austin.
Oh.
He's in like snow country.
I just thought that you had already made your reservation way ahead of Xander did, and all of a sudden Xander got his.
He did.
I don't know. Are you trying to rub this in or?
No, the opposite. I'm actually asking the question. Xander's going to have a Tesla
Jeff,
Semi. He's going to have
Are we leaving, Jeff? We're leaving, right?
So I'm fine. No, I can take it.
No, so you've got Xander. You've got you got the Cybertruck. You got the Tesla Semi. What do you guys think though? Like in this earnings call that's coming up, right? Aren't we going to get? They already announced the energy. They included that in the P&D, and then they're going to probably talk about full self-driving. So this earnings call, then there's going to be bad numbers, maybe bad earnings, right? The margin's unlikely to have somehow magically improved, but they're going to be able to talk about FSD at least, right?
Well, they will talk about FSD. I mean, first of all, it's 19 days to go. I'm waiting every and any single day on the proxy. We still don't have that. I expected it 4 or 5 weeks ago. We still don't have it. This proxy is going to be either very thin or very thick. What do I mean? Either it has Elon's 2024 compensation package in there, and they're going for it despite the fact that the 2018 compensation package is still involved in the Delaware court case, or they're not. So if they are not, they'll have some questions from shareholders. The good sisters always worrying about cobalt mines in I don't know where. So we'll have some of those, and they may have a couple of they do have re-elections. If I recall it right, there are 2 re-elections of Mr. Murdoch and Kimball, if I recall it right, but I may be mistaken on that one. I can look that up. So it could be very thin, just basic stuff, and then a meeting in May, which it should be, and usually 45 days ahead we have the proxy, and we don't have that yet. So that may still mess with what's going to happen in the earnings call, because there may be new topics up there that we today don't even know about it. And if not, I think Elon has gotten us used to catastrophic earnings calls, right? Remember how everybody always goes out and said, oh, this is even worse than the last one, which I actually don't think so. But we have that then from our usual commentators. Or there could be some surprises. Maybe there is now an OEM that is in discussion. Maybe there are stuff that are, to be disclosed at that very moment. So I think this is probably the most unpredictable Q1 earnings calls that we've had in a long, long time.
You should invite Jim Farley to that conference call, have him kick it off, and say that he's proud to be the first partner with Tesla. Right. Full self-driving, then just leave the room, drop the mic, leave the room. Again, now I'm awake and I'm not dreaming anymore. Alexandra I think you did a presentation one time of like understanding your audience relative to the material that you're presenting and seeing if it's aligned. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if if Tesla reads the room and understands, like they're at a point where they really need to articulate the path going forward, or are they just not going to read the room and continue to do what they're doing? Because remember in the Q4 earnings call, they had a solid unit number. In fact, it was a beat. But then again, we found ways to have issues during that. So anyway, this would be interesting to see during this call of what they come with, considering the situation they're coming in with.
Yeah, and I had a quick chance to check it out, and it is Kimball and Mr. Murdoch that are up for re-election.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point you brought up, that the proxy hasn't got, it's usually a 45-day. So the fact that that's delayed, Alexander, do you think that there could be more going on than a normal proxy, or?
Well, long answer, I'm sorry. The Delaware 2018 compensation package, we now know dates. So 1st of May, Tesla is going to have a hearing on what Tesla thinks the plaintiff's attorney should be paid. Remember, the plaintiff's attorney put the first number out there with 29 million shares. Then it was about $6 billion. And so on the 1st of May, Tesla's attorneys will come out and explain how little it should be. Then they have, I think about a week later, a date where they could have found a solution that they both negotiated and bring forward a common solution. So I think that's on the 8th of May, something like that, a couple of days later. I don't expect that to happen at all, because I do believe Tesla is going to go in with a minimal amount, and they obviously want the maximum amount. And then there will be another hearing of both parties on July the 8th, and thereafter she's gonna rule on that. So that and then once we have that ruling, then Tesla can decide whether they're going to appeal that judgment at the Supreme Court of Delaware. And then if that happens, it takes about a year. There's going to be a big question of how much is going to be included, whether our letters are going to be included. I want to take that opportunity because I think I wasn't on the cyberbulls since we did that letter initiative. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thousands of letters that really put them on the spot. I really appreciate that we all did that. So this 2018 case is going to hang over as a cloud for quite a while. There's also now going to be the case, when does Tesla ask the shareholders to vote to leave Delaware to move to Texas? That could come sooner. That could come in this proxy. That could be one of the reasons why this proxy is still delayed. That can happen independently. It won't delocalize that case. That case is still going to be a Delaware case, but they may want to do that before they put in place a 2024 compensation package. So that could be in the initial proxy, that they ask the shareholders to vote to change the jurisdiction of the company and get it incorporated in Texas rather than in Delaware. So that could be in the making. What could also be in the making is that by this change, they introduce a second share class. So if that's the case, that could be a way of giving Elon the 25%. If that is the case, that also needs a lot of fine-tuning. You don't just sit down and now decide you're going to do a second share class, especially given that any class action attorney in the world is now going to dream about suing Tesla, given what is currently on the table for the plaintiff's attorneys in Delaware. So I think this proxy, again, could be very thin and have nothing of this all in it. And then we may have a second shareholder meeting a bit later into the year, and they may have to take that decision of, are we going to squeeze this all in now into May because we're sort of running out of time and, rush it and maybe not as attentive? Or shall we just do the May stuff as little as possible, as thin as possible, and do a second shareholder meeting that's not going to be probably in person, that's just going to be a vote, but that we have a little bit more time, that we actually may know the outcome of Delaware by then, but then that delays the moving of Delaware into Texas and putting in place thereafter a second compensation package. So anyway, lots on the table, and that could be the reason why it's not out there. Maybe they're trying to squeeze some of it, even all of it, into it. I doubt it, but I'm really looking forward on, seeing what's happening.
Super helpful.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. First of all, you and Amy have done incredible work to support Elon.
Amy is a superstar. I mean, honestly, I've met a lot of smart people in my life. She's the smartest cookie out there. She is an absolute superstar.
She's amazing. And what you guys have been doing. So here, I want to share this. Alexandra asked this question. This was April 3rd, yesterday. When can we finally vote on our new comp package, Elon? You deserve it even more. Elon responded to you. The support is super appreciated. I obviously don't need money personally, but I am concerned about not having voting power to influence Tesla to do the right thing. I mean, you have been, along with Amy, have been doing such incredible work, making sure that we resolve this issue with the judge and continuing to vote and, all the getting everybody mobilized, having this Tesla investors. Elon appreciates it. He really does. And so we need to support this. Thank you again. But
thank
all
you.
of us,
and want to call this out because I mean I saw that last night when I woke up in the middle of the night, and it really I was tearing up because this meant a lot to me. But it's not only to me. I mean, this group of Tesla shareholders is exceptional. I've never seen anything like it. When we called in February, March to come out and sign a petition that we sent then to Tesla's board saying, board, sort this out. We want Elon to have his money. We want you to stand up and do this now. 22 million shares were pledged against this. I mean, I've never seen anything like that in 4 days, including a weekend. This was just absolutely great. When we called out and said, we're going to write them letters, they are not going to get 6 billion. I mean, where are we? This is ridiculous. They're representing a shareholder with 9 shares who probably, was a shareholder exactly for this purpose. And thousands of letters worldwide were sent. Never happened in Delaware. And Delaware is the place where, most of corporations in America have their jurisdiction. So the fact that it's never happened before and that in a couple of weeks we're able to mobilize so many people just shows how people appreciate Elon, how people appreciate Tesla, and that we're not going to be stepped on our toes by people who are, in my view, strongly anti-capitalistic, who are having second goals, who are just not focused on what we shareholders have decided we wanted to do just for their own political gain. And this is not over. We will need you again. You're not seeing Amy a lot at the moment because she's playing a crucial role, and we'll be more precise about that in a couple of weeks. But we'll need each and every one of you again in a couple of weeks in the same quantities and with the same motivation. And I know I can count on you, and I'm really proud of you.
thank you.
Great work.
Big important work. So this is good. Let's final topic. Let's talk about this, right? So everything looks pretty dire. The auto business looks like that it stumbled. You explained it well. There's supply issues. There were some demand issues. But let's step back, and you got the Robotaxi, you got the FSD version 12.3.3 looking good, and it's progressing well. Then we got news that Tesla, or this is it's still rumors, but it's looking very credible that they're apparently Tesla Giga Berlin is starting to make right-hand cars for specifically to export to India this year. This is from Reuters, but several other news outlets reported this. 3 people aware of the company's plans. So again, not yet confirmed, but it looks like that. Here's the thing, right? So India last month slashed the import tax rate on certain electric vehicles if their makers invest at least $500 million in the country and start production there within 3 years. That's what Tesla's been lobbying for a while. And so this move for them to do this is critical. And it's going to be Giga Berlin instead of Giga Shanghai, which is where Model Ys, the right-hand drives, are being sold to other places. So again, that's why if Giga
But you know
Berlin's
why?
Well, it's
because
closer.
no. There is a big competition between China and India, and there is actually a lot of tariffs if you import Chinese goods into China, into India.
Okay, it's not just location. Thank you.
Oh, no.
I know that. So, this is the thing. Companies can import up to 8,000 cars a year at the lower tax rate. That's a small, tiny number. And so that's why would you be doing this unless it's in preparation for?
No, exactly. There's so much more coming. And it was actually a coincidence, but probably not, that Elon announced a couple of minutes prior to this article from Reuters coming out that India now has community nodes on X. It was just, the big coincidence. India, exactly. So, I mean, 8,000 cars, and Mark Spiegel did a idiotic. I mean, when I see these Wall Street whisperers and win counters, I'm always furious, but then I forget there are real Tesla queues out there, not only the ones that are pretending to be. And Mark Spiegel is one of them. And he was this morning commenting on the India thing. What they don't understand is this is a tiny first step.
Mm-hmm.
What will be produced in the end in India is the Robotaxi and the $25,000 car. Everything else will be imported. So they start importing now 3s and Ys and maybe later on even X's and S. And that's all fine. That's just, to get the market started off and have first cars. There's high demand for these cars from a very elite niche, because those are not the typical Indian cars. But this is just the first step of a long, long, long relationship with Tesla in India.
Yeah, I from doing this a couple of times and setting up in India, Alexandra is exactly right. Like, you have to prime the infrastructure and the system first with product. And I would just say, I would be shocked if the details of this deal were actually leaked. I would actually be surprised if people think like Tesla is going to get the standard deal that other automakers are getting. I would be surprised. You don't normally do that with number one. You and number one usually set up and create your own deal, and you don't disclose the terms of those deals, by the way, as well. So, and this is, I kind of look at this synonymous with like, Apple, and they set up in India, and people thought like, oh, nobody's going to buy, $1,000, $1,500 iPhones. And I think they're on their 10 millionth unit now within a few years, and they've set up manufacturing. So these existing TAMs that people think like, well, there's this many people and they make this much money, and this is what happens today. That population is evolving very quickly. I'm saying it is going to be difficult to forecast, but don't think that that you can just put them on a number based on today's purchasing patterns and today's TAM. They're obviously working with the government to try to build out a new TAM. When they bring Tesla in, they're bringing in Tesla know-how and people and the Tesla way of manufacturing, design and manufacturing, so that it can spread throughout their population and their workforce, so they can pick up this critical industry of EV and not just let China run away with it. Right now, China is out exporting everyone in all propulsion systems of vehicles, and India does not want to see them run away with that. So there's a lot of competitive dynamics. I would be surprised if the terms of the deal actually leaked. And my guess is it's going to be a very sweet deal for Tesla, go well beyond auto, and I believe it'll probably be a multifaceted deal over a number of years. And it's a great hedge for Tesla from a logistics perspective and from a trade route perspective, because in India they've got great export lanes into Europe. They can even ship back to the US pretty much unrestricted. So if there's any issues that occur in any other countries, this is great geographical redundancy to set up in India.
Perfect, Jeff.
Okay.
I love listening to you.
Yeah.
I know, me too. Mice nuts. The terms he uses is just incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, just for fun. Yeah, let's talk about a robo-taxi world. In a world where there's robo-taxis everywhere. Guys, is that all pros? Is there any cons to that? Is that a world you want to be living in?
Oh, yes. I don't want to pay insurance and maintain my cars in front of my garage. No, of course I want to live in that world. And I want to live in it as well in bigger cities. I'm at an age where I'm now living in a city of 80,000 inhabitants, and I'm not a big fan of big cities anymore because there's just too much traffic, difficult to park, so much pollution and all that. Can you imagine once that is all just going to be robo-taxis who are not polluting, who are not going to be just congesting the whole city, congesting the parking lots, congesting everything, just something fluid where, you pay from one point to the other where you go, and then the car is not your issue anymore. You're dropped off, you've arrived at destination, you get out there, you're relaxed, you're happy. You don't have any strange driver that's trying to tell you stories about, their kids and whatever, just nothing, just your comfort. Of course, I want to live in that tomorrow, please.
Yeah, I'm with Alexandra. I just think that as long as you can, like, you won't want to own a car, especially, if you're in an environment, obviously rural is going to be a different ballgame, but all of these suburban areas, as long as you can, request a car and within what, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it shows up as you're putting on your shoes and grabbing your phone or brushing your teeth, whatever you're doing, as long as it's within like a reasonable amount of time. What do you care? You're gonna, why own this thing? Like my 2022 Model Y Performance that I need to sell is got 14,000 miles on it. That's nothing. That's nothing. So it's such an
How much did it cost
underutilized
you,
asset.
Xander? Exactly.
Yeah, $1,200 payment. So
Yeah.
it's really, I don't have to worry about it, and we need one car, and I think that's the way it's going to go. A family will just have one car instead of two because the husband and the wife need to do other things. But then when my car was in the shop or something like that, you used Uber, and that was like $10 to go, 2 miles to take the child to ninja class. But if the prices come down, and it's just the utility becomes, the better way to do it. I don't see any other way that this goes except, big cities, and then it'll start rolling down to the suburban areas.
Yeah.
I think it's a good take. I'm always interested in like the fleet operation and how these things are going to be managed, charged, cleaned. I mean, what's going to be going on inside of these robotaxis is a question I think can be debated on multiple shows. And I'm not saying anything. I'm putting the question out there. So I think the fleet management, I think, is going to be interesting. I think Xander and Alexander are spot on. Like, it's going to start in this urban area and kind of move its way out. But I'll be fascinated how this plays out. It makes sense from a utilization of assets perspective too. But I'll always want to have a car at least. But yeah, this is interesting.
But you can imagine the 9 to 5 crowd, right? They want to get to work and then let their vehicle go make them some money, just like was prophesized.
Somebody told me there's a documentary about how they came up with the rules, the regulations for how many parking spots you need to have in your building, in your house, and those kind of things. And they actually overestimate, like it was way more than they required. And that's why our cities and our world is paved when it didn't need to be this much. But imagine when you don't need that many parking garages and parking spots and everything. That's all just more, hopefully not going to be, more buildings, but hopefully more room
Spaces.
to parks.
Green spaces, exactly.
What are they called? Concrete jungle?
Concrete jungle. That's where we live in now. And then, of course, if you have this, maybe you can live further away. Sounding like a suburb. But maybe it's going to be better. I think it's in general better, right? I'd be curious to see if there's other people who do not like a robotaxi feature. What are the negatives?
I think people still, there's still people who love to drive, love to have their car. And I think that's just fine. Like people love to have their horse and their carriage, even after the cars were introduced. And for me, it just seems a tough transition just because people can't imagine it the same way that people couldn't imagine other transitions. But this work from home period that we had due to the pandemic actually helped it, because now suddenly people can imagine that they're working more from home. They need less the car for regular stuff. So maybe they actually don't need the car so much. And once you get down to the financials and tell somebody you're not going to pay the lease anymore, you're not going to pay the insurance anymore, you don't have to, maintain the car or whatever. You're just going to press a button on your phone, and an empty car, driverless car, is going to come here, deposit you at Gold, and when you're ready, it's going to be there again when you leave. You can program them. If you want to go to Home Depot, you get a Cybertruck. If you want to go to the movies and you're just one or two people, that's going to be a smaller car. But and if you want to do a wedding, you can have whatever, beautiful X or whatever. But I do believe it's the future, and it's gonna be I hope my husband doesn't hear me. It's going to be tougher for the older folks, just because if you've been used to 50 years of car ownership and driving, I think it's tougher to let go than for the more tech savvy younger guys and girls who just, want to have this comfort, also be able to do something while you're in that car rather than, having to concentrate on the road and not thinking of what Jeff's thinking, but just saying it over there. Right? You're laughing, so I was right.
I don't know what Jeff was thinking, but yeah, what's happening inside those robotaxis? What Jeff was asking. So let's
look at him.
That could be the title of the show.
If the robotaxis are rocking, don't come on.
Don't come knocking. Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. That was very, very informative. You guys are rock stars.
Herbert, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Thanks, everyone. It's an honor to be here.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.